Okay, folks, you're on. So that's good. Okay, so since we have usually a very nice mix of people who come from all different disciplines and thoughts, and so it's you don't need to hear that much from me. But anyway, after I tapped out enhancement, and it suddenly hit me how close it was to enchantment. And that is a sea of difference. In fact, two seas of difference, or perhaps not. Now I'm going to do something really, really clever here. 1 second. No. So you all know what this is, the James Webb Space Telescope. And these are some, you can all see that, I hope. And here's some nice images. And that's just an introduction to what I'm going to say. Now, these images from the James Webb Space Telescope are dazzling accomplishments of human ingenuity. They're also processed to maximum awe-inducing effect with multiple pictures often combined to form one pristine image and colors recalibrated for the human eye. Why am I saying that? They're beautiful, but most of the nebulae and galaxy photos are what we call false color or exaggerated color, or perhaps reconstructed color. These images do not usually reflect what we would see if we looked at them ourselves. They have to be, because they are of their spectral range, which is outside what the human eye can see anyway. So this is making science beautiful. It enhances the images to reflect what is already in our imagined memories. The spectacular is not enough without artificial enhancement. It's not just science, of course. The arts, fashion, religions, possibly all of life are enhancements if you think about it. What are advertisements if not enhancing ordinary objects? So is enhancement a method of looking for the truth or hiding the truth? Is truth sought through adornment or unadornment? Is truth in what we see or what we don't see? There are huge dichotomies here. You've got postmodernism, which is the scattering of parts, and relativism versus modernism, the unity of parts that make a whole. Examples of enhancement are makeup, hair dyeing, lip suction, there's fashion, history, social media profiles, poetry, language. What is good literature if not the sprucing up of words, sentences, and expressions? Take away the beautiful cover up, what is left? If everything is enhanced, what is it all enhanced from?
We do have migraines in our family, so I was just wondering if he was having something like that.
Somebody
It's like
talking.
Intense throbbing.
Somebody
That-
talking.
I normally get one every year.
Who's the one? Can somebody switch that off, please? I can't see who's asked to unmute. Okay, so is literature or poetry, though, isn't it the words themselves that are the beauty? On a personal level, when I write books for what we call the public, let's say, the most difficult part is choosing the words and phrases and sentences for my audience. I need to unenhance my ideas in order to enhance meaning within a particular framework. The word enhancement covers a multitude of sins. It's not a stable representation. It has a connotation of improvement, but that is markedly subjective. Enhancement, improvement, or advancement. An idealist version of oneself may be an ideal only for the enhancer, not necessarily for the enhancee, the one who is supposed to be enchanted. A question would have to be, is speech an enhancement of the written or vice versa? Enhancement is in the eyes of the perceiver, is it not? One person's enhancement is another person's deterioration. I posit, folks, 3 types of enhancement. There's additional enhancement, there is subtractional, which is negative enhancement, and then there is hybrid advancement, which is a sort of false enhancement. All of them have the same effect, enhancement as improvement. Here are some examples. You've got makeup, dyed hair, social media, personal profiles. These are additional enhancements, enhancing the ordinary. Then you've got conceptual art, which is subtractional advancement. That is enhancing what really is by taking away what one sees. Then there is subatomic phenomena in quantum mechanics, which is hybrid. I call that hybrid enhancement. Why hybrid? Because in order to make the concept a particle, for example, understandable, it is represented as if it is a point. But a particle is not a point, right? It is a concept. It is a false additional enhancement, but it's the only way it can be explained. Now, if you think of what's been going on at the moment with the crypto empire FTX, is an example of additional enhancement, like makeup to cover blemishes, while its collapse showed what was underneath, i.e. nothing. We can see that the trend, the basic idea of enhancement, is towards something, even when that something is nothing, because that nothing is something. In all of this is the underlying notion or dilemma of fake and real. Fake is a harsh claim when it is made. And if it is harsh, then real is its enhancement. But of course, one can't enhance fake other than eliminating it, like enhancing zero, for example. Now, in all the time that I've been doing this, Terry, it really makes me laugh to see you as Father Christmas. I got to tell you. Okay. No. It's very good. It's just very good. I have, in all the time we've been together, which is over 2.5 years, I've never touched conspiracy theories, and there's a very good reason. I mean, so much has been written and talked about it, it's really rubbish. But anyway, but in the light of enhancement, could we not posit the notion that conspiracy theories are tools for enhancement, that, like makeup, for example, become the truth, in inverted commas, of what really is? For them, not theories, but truths. So for a believer, not conspiracy theories, but real truths. They're not theories, they're truths for them. So truths are a problem, especially when they are given the higher order of the truth. Everyone has a number of truths, loads and loads of truths, but the proliferation of truths is meant to point to the truth, but in fact is a layer. It's a fig leaf for the impossibility of there being the truth. Now let's get back to telescopes for a sec. How is it that we recognize the images? How is it that there are no things that we don't recognize? We can't see colors that are out of our human spectrum. We can't imagine that what we haven't yet seen. Basically, we are seeing things in the telescope that we are able to recognize. If there was something that we can't imagine, we couldn't even see it. It doesn't matter how much we enhance something, it will only be of things that we recognize. There might be things in there that we just don't recognize. Therefore, we're not seeing it all. The enhancement is doing the exact opposite. We're just not seeing what there might be there. Enhancement, like reductionism, reaches its limit at the point where our imagination ends. Does that not imply that everything is the result of enhancement? And if so, the implication is that there may be things that are more basic, that there are true things that we can't get to. This would remind some of you of of Kant, the thing in itself, but not really, since Kant could only refer to things that are part of human knowledge and conception. He couldn't talk about what really is, when we've never seen things that we don't know what is, because they don't exist and we can't see them. Enhancement, by the way, has a long history. It was in fact the very first phenomenon. Eve's fig leaf to cover parts of her body that are, as a result, now called private parts. They weren't private then, by the way. This is enhancement as far as religions are concerned, and as such is an example of retroactive enhancement. It's a good story, folks. The spiritual tenets in religions are the collective fig leaf to cover up what are difficult to justify as the workings of a good God. The Holocaust, for example, or the Crusades, where mass killings were carried out for God and are justifiably explained by the fig leaf of God's will. There is a fig leaf for anything ordinarily difficult to explain. Religions enhance God through earthly, huge and beautiful edifices. This is an example of additional enhancement. This is the flip side of making oneself small to show the overwhelming greatness of God. Religions are big on making humans small. But all religions cover God with attributes, the fig leaves of religions. But as you know, Nietzsche killed God. God was false, he said. God covers up what is real. So Nietzsche discounted God's attributes. Now, if we consider history, would it be misplaced to claim that all history is enhancement? Could there be history that is true? Surely history is a telling of individual or collective memory, and as such must be enhancement. A pointed example is Marx's dialectical materialism, which is a methodological enhancement of history. Anything that has a purpose must include enhancement of some sort, unless, of course, there is absolute objective truth, at which point enhancement has reached its end. Does art have a purpose? Does life have a purpose? Art has a purpose through churches and art for God and politics. There has been a, how are we doing? Okay, there's been a progression of art from an objectification of God, the earlier paintings, a higher being, to realism, looking at nature, to modern art and conceptual art, all being examples of enhancement, an example of continuous subtractional enhancement. I'll give you two very, very small examples. Constable, whose paintings were an idealistic stretch, in a way an enhancement of nature. If you look at Autumnal Sunrise, there's a lot of real stuff taken out, but it's pretty good. And there's Turner, who came after that, was more abstract than Constable. For example, the Scarlet Sunset of 1830. Picasso really mucked around with, hang on, there are more people not on cameras than are on cameras. Would you please all get on your cameras? There's a reason for my asking for it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike. Sheila, thank you very much. Thank you. I'll tell you the sad story afterwards why I insist on it. Nabosha, can you please put your camera on? I need to see you, and it's polite and very sociable. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good to see you with us. Welcome. Now we can see you. It's good. Okay. So, so what are we saying? So ostensibly art, at least art that is based on religious themes, is that it is stripped of narrative, allegory, politics, and theology. Even precise description is gone. What is focused on is sensation. I said ostensibly, but art is more into politics than it has been for years. It's the enhancement of woke. We thought that gone are the days of dictators like Hitler and Stalin, who dictated when art is allowed to be shown. But we are back in an age where art has become one with political norms. Everything now seems to be painted metaphorically with whatever colors are deemed to reflect the current state of correctness. So I'll give you a very, very small example. There's the catalogue which accompanies Tate Modern's Cézanne exhibition explains that, I quote, Cézanne's blue radiates from the canvas and signals Europe's rampant move into the tropical region of the Americas. Stop the quote. A few pages later, you find another writer wondering whether Cézanne could really have painted the disintegrating landscape of Sous-Bois, a study of woodland in the south of France. And I open the quote, if he was unaware of the disintegration happening on his and his countrymen's belief in the likes of Algeria, the Congo, Vietnam, and the rest of France's colonies. So this is coloring and enhancing events according to political opinions. The idea that anybody might manage to paint a tree without an awareness of colonial injustices in Vietnam apparently strikes the writer as highly whimsical. Would there even be a Cézanne, he says, without colonization? It gets pretty bad. A label next to a Hogarth self-portrait showing the painter sitting on a chair in an empty room pointed out that the chair is made from timbers shipped from colonies via routes that also shipped and enslaved people. It went on to wonder, and I quote, could the chair also stand in for all those unnamed black and brown people, enabling society that supports his vigorous creativity? I mean, do we really need to be told how we should see art? And what is being enhanced here? Which brings us to an interesting point. It seems that enhancement must come at the expense of something else. In other words, does the addition of something always result in the subtraction of something else? In which way is history enhanced by taking down statues of people who were products of their time? Let's look for a couple of minutes at beauty and truth. Does one come at the expense of the other? Does enhancing one's face with makeup cover up the truth of one's unadorned face? The implication is that every brush of paint covers up the truth of the unadorned. There seems to be here a dichotomy between beauty and truth. In fact, multiple voices in late modern philosophy adopt this dualistic assurance that the objective truth and subjective beauty simply don't mix, and that beautiful ideas are more likely to be true than ugly ones. This is saying that a photoshopped face is more true than the face in its natural state. In physics and mathematics, though, beauty and truth are on the same side, it seems. The dominant feeling is that mathematical beauty is a good indicator of scientific truth. In other words, aesthetic beauty is not an enhanced version of the truth. Beauty not only is the truth, but it is the truth because it is beautiful. So most people assume the possibility of objective truth must securely, most securely in the form of scientific knowledge. Similarly, a shared standard of beauty can be accepted as an axiom of faith. We all know beauty when we see it. If not all of us, then at least qualified critics do, according to Hume. Keats, in his long poem Lamina, complains that its dull philosophy has clipped an angel's wings and that science unweaves the rainbow. the rich aesthetic of wonder, awe, and mystery that generates poetic beauty is not, at least by Keats, enriched by science and rather sucked dry through acts of palpable violence. By the way, sometimes physics and art agree. For example, in symmetry. Symmetry can be seen in the beauty of crystals, also the steady spinning of the Earth about the planet's poles, and even generates the ordered families of elementary particles of high physics. There have been high-profile proponents of beauty as a guide to scientific truth, most notably theoretical physicist Paul Dirac, for whom, and I quote, this is amazing, "It is more important to have beauty in one's equations than to have them fit experiment." Admittedly, his relativist version of the Schrödinger equation for the electron contains symmetries that are not only mathematically elegant, but also lead inexorably to the enforced emergence of electron spin and of the existence of antiparticles. It is easy to understand how exposure to such siren examples as this have beguiled generations of Dirac's successors into searching for the truth of physical, the truth behind the doorway of mathematical beauty. Physicist and writer Sabina Hossenfeld, in her book Lost in Math, warns that beauty is a treacherous guide and it has led to physicists astray many times before maths. That physics isn't math, it's choosing the right math. The implication is the right math may not be the most aesthetical appealing. How are we doing with time? I'll be finished in a second. I will leave, okay. It is surprising that beauty and symmetry do not necessarily coincide. Beauty is an ideal, a state of perfection that, as far as Plato was concerned, is a theoretical concept only. "If you look for perfection, you'll never be satisfied," said Lvov's wife in Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. Not containing flaws, perfection is not found in nature, even though it is an enhancement of natural attractiveness. Though is another matter. Attractiveness is individual and different in every case. Unpredictable because of its standard flaws, it covers an almost infinite range of possibilities. There is no fear of perfection. Have no fear of perfection, said Spanish surrealist artist Salvador Dali. You'll never reach it. There is a paradox in the claim that unenhancement can be more attractive than enhancement. What about irregularities? They are surely examples of non-beauty. Not necessarily, though. Music, like everything else, has to be flawed in order to exist as itself. As soon as it becomes perfect, i.e. enhanced through electronically forming the flawless sound, it disappears into the perfection of its own special effects. Enhancement can bring the demise of what is being enhanced. I will finish this off. I'm coming to my time limit. I want to just mention the Bernini paradox. As a model of a complex system becomes more complete, more enhanced in our terms, it becomes less understandable. Alternatively, as a model grows more realistic, it also becomes just as difficult to understand as the real world processes it as it represents it. The way I have put it is the more you zoom in, the more you see, and the harder you have to work in order to understand the parts and how they fit into the whole. The solution would seem to be to zoom out, but then you see less of your model, and the further you are from seeing what you want to solve. If you zoom out far enough, it all disappears. Therefore, the greater the enhancement, the closer you get to nothingness. There seems to be an exception. The pictures that came back from the James Bell Space Telescope seem to tell us that further away we are, the further out we can see while moving back in time. So enhancement has in it the danger of enchantment, the enchantment of ostensibly getting closer to the truth. Enhancement is infinite and will always be there. That's the end of my little bit. And I now open the floor to anybody who wants to argue with me, which is probably most of you. So the first one is hand up is Father Christmas. Terry.
Ho, 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 yes, yes. Number of things are interesting on that. One thing I'd like to point out on the positive side of enhancement is, let's say something very simple. I have 5 apples. I want to count 5 apples. There's a problem with that. Have you ever seen an apple that's exactly like another apple? Have you ever seen perfect correspondence between those? The answer is no. So what do? You enhance the concept of an apple. You create some broader concept of an apple, which is an enhancement. It's an idealized apple. It's just like we idealize people, we idealize apples. But the positive side is that somewhere in that idea of enhancing is also the act of creation that allows us to discuss, to converse, to be human, to make assessments, to make judgments, to postulate worlds that cannot be. All involve the idea of this slurring over of some of the details to get at something that we find useful with that. Now, the flip side of that, and I'll leave that, there's a number of things that would be fun to talk about, but so I don't take too long on it, is there's the positive enhancement in which it seems to work. Calling apples apples generally works, as long as you don't get something poisonous and describe that as an apple, then you're in trouble. The same thing for some of the more philosophical versions of this. The example which of course we've talked about this one, Einstein was originally a Hume philosopher approach in his mathematics. His first papers in special relativity were based entirely on Hume's perspective, and he says this explicitly, that the self is a starting point for everything, which is a remarkable statement for one of the most famous physicists of all time. You start with yourself and you start with that viewpoint. He got that from Hume. And from that, he got special relativity, which says everybody's viewpoint is equally valid, period. No exceptions, which was a striking thing to do because it causes all sorts of seemingly paradoxical things, which actually work out once you take it seriously. He got enhanced by Minkowski. Minkowski got to him and said, no. You got to stop messing around with these sloppy, clocky thingies, all that stuff. Time is perfect. Time is a continuum. Time is absolute. And that's where you got to go, Einstein. You were my student. You got some success with this. I got to straighten you out now. And in doing so, he created paradoxes that linger with physics to this day. One thing just to point out that the very concept of a point in special relativity, if you look at it carefully, creates a paradox. You were saying, Ron, that you cannot have a particle. Well, it turns out that in special relativity, if you're really careful about it and you follow that, you can't even make it shaped like a particle. It turns out into a stringy sort of thing that goes over through space and time. So we can have negative enhancements as well as positive enhancements that look beautiful. This is what Sabina was talking about. They look beautiful, they look gorgeous, but ultimately they keep us away from something that works a little bit better. And with that, I'll shut up.
But Terry, that's not an enhancement. It's an enhancement of what you think that thing could look like, even though it doesn't. That's not enhancement. That is have I called it a hybrid enhancement? It's not enhancement. It's just making something up in order for people to understand a concept. But it's not. I would not call it an enhancement.
What would you call it then? Because you talked about like in the advertising side, it does feel like there needs to be a different word there, and I'm just not sure.
I know. That's the problem. I agree with you.
But it deceives instead of builds, and
I would call it an abstraction.
Abstractions are a general category. That makes sense. That it cover both cases. There's negative abstractions and positive abstractions. But it's definitely not an enhancement. I see your point, Ron. It's the enhancement has a negative, a positive aspect to it. So it's talking about the good side of the abstraction.
I called it a hybrid, but really I should have called it, it's a fiddle. It's it's just made up. It just gets us to see something that you can't see, but it helps us to understand something of what is, but really isn't. So that's why it's hybrid. But it's a very difficult thing. We don't have a word for that sort of it. It's not enhancement, but I agree with the reason I chose the word enhancement is because it is so difficult, because it's in the eyes of the beholder. Somebody can have say what they called they can have those lips, what they call sucked, what they called you know what I mean? They're great huge lips, and
Liposuction.
that's the one. That's the one.
Well, that's when liposuction is where they take the fat away. There's something that they inject collagen in.
Yeah. Well,
Collagen, yeah, collagen injections.
Collagen, yeah, just collagen injections. That's it.
yeah.
Yeah, and the word I thought of when you said that was pursed. I don't think that's what you wanted.
That's
Yeah.
the short version.
No, I'm just saying that it's in the eyes of the beholder. The one who does that thinks that's an enhancement. For other people, they think that's awful. So the whole business of enhancement, and I chose it for that reason, is because you can muck around with it and realize how difficult life is, basically. So thank you very much, Terry. I know you'll be on again. Keep the hat on. It's keeping it very good. Katie.
Yeah, I was enjoying, Terry, your comments about Apple. That made me think about too, like pegging Apple into as a concept. It's like apples are safe to eat versus, something over there might be, that part of that trying to understand it in the brain is probably like safety versus, is that dangerous? And then I was going to comment on Ron, I was on your idea of like history as enhancement, because I'm making sure I'm understanding your idea of enhancement. Because I see like, for example, makeup, it's kind of like the correction of the details, which are like, flaw might be a detail that's not perfect. So you're covering it up to make, get closer to this ideal of perfection. But I see history more as like a bias towards what's memorable about the situation and kind of like a clearing out of all the details. I mean, there's a bias towards looking at whatever made that situation. So if you're a president, you're memorable because you had a lot of importance in the decisions, and all the details of their lives like disappear as the people that knew them pass away. I see that less as enhancement. I see that more as like taking away of all the details. But so I'm trying to understand what the idea of enhancement.
Yeah, so would I. History can only be an enhancement because it can't be real in any way. It is a memory of something, memory of people, memory of what people wrote, people who we've never seen, who not alive at any time that we were, and we're reading people's enhancement of what happened. It has to be an enhancement, and it could be a negative enhancement. It could be saying that everything is wrong, but it always comes from a bias. It has to, and to think of history as a recollection of or a collection of facts cannot be, because whoever writes history writes it from their point of view. Has to. And that we all know that if we are present at a certain event and it's written about in the papers, we'll say, wait a minute, it wasn't like that at all. And that's just from yesterday. So you can imagine what's been going on over hundreds of years, and history is distorted, but it has to be an enhancement of some way. It's a very dodgy thing. I mean, history is very good, but on the other hand, we need to keep in mind that I don't like to say the word real, but I have to here. It's not real. It's real according to who wrote it. And when you say that the victors write history, that's not always true. Sometimes the people who lost write it, and it's just as biased, it's just as enhanced, either plus or minus. But I agree with you. It's this business of enhancement, and the point is that everything, as far as I can see, must be enhancement. Everything. I can't see how it cannot be unless you believe in objective truth, and we've been through this many times. If you believe in objective truth, and what you put down is the objective truth. But if it isn't, then it's an enhancement of some sort for the positive or the negative. So I agree with you, Katie. I definitely agree with you. Thank you very much. Michael, hi.
Unfortunately, I have to go to another meeting soon, so I wanted at least to make a couple of comments. Although usually it's better to wait for what others say, because it gives more food for thought, so to say. But anyway, so one thing about enhancement is that well, the fact that it is subjective, it's in the eye of the beholder, it's almost trivial. So why should not it be? If even the scientific truth, the existence of objective truth can be questioned, and our ideas about enhancement, basically about what is better, they should be even more subjective. Of course they are. But what is less trivial is why some people, or at least many people, could agree in what is better, or what is more beautiful. And this seems to me not as a trivial fact as we used to see it, because why should it be the case? Why different people would have the same idea that some say symmetrical face are nicer than asymmetrical, or things of this nature? So it could be something related to our shared experience, experience related to our needs to survive, that maybe there are some things that we all observed and found maybe safer, maybe more satisfactory in some ways. And this percolated in this shared idea about beauty and so on. But I'm just guessing. My point is not to suggest an explanation of this, but just to point out that it may be not so trivial why it is. And another point about beauty and truth in science, and you are right that sometimes the more sophisticated models we are trying to develop, the less value we are getting from these models. So sometimes the crude models, which are based only, say, on something like conservation laws, give surprisingly good results, and when people are trying to enhance them, they are getting diminishing returns from this. And at some point, the models become so unreliable that their utility becomes entirely questionable. And why is this again? It's another interesting question. I guess it has something to do with the fact that the more you are trying to enhance your models, the more you have to make some subjective choices based on which factors to include, how to include them. And this inevitably is leading to distorting the reality, unless you are really lucky and make very good choices, which is rarely the case. And another sort of related issue is that the situation which we have now in physics, when there are so many different series of different level of mathematical beauty, that we don't know how to. And it's again, I don't know what to make of this, because it could be that there is some limit how close we can come to understanding the nature of the universe, so to say. And maybe we already approached this limit. And maybe we will have to be satisfied that we still have to live with this ambiguity about our knowledge of the universe for a long time. I'm reluctant to say forever, but maybe this is just a temporary situation in physics. I don't know. But again, it's another illustration how complicated can be this relationship between beauty and truth. And the fact that so often in the past they agreed with each other, it could be just a coincidence. But maybe it could be more than a coincidence. I don't know. But another interesting issue probably to consider in this regard. And of course, as you mentioned, that enhancement can come at the cost of something. Well, anything often comes at the cost of something, and this is obvious. But what is more important that what our ideas about enhancement, what is good for us and not so good or maybe bad for others, they often disagree, and so it's an interesting question. How can we, and maybe even practical question, how can we overcome these disagreements and find something that we still can all agree, or most of us could agree, because sometimes you can do this. So it would be nice to know how to do this. What is the most reliable ways to find this proverbial common ground? But anyway, more questions than answers, but that's probably the nature of this.
And there are always more questions than answers, always.
Yeah.
Especially on the first Sunday of the month.
Yeah.
But that's part of the thing. We have to ask questions, and one of the reasons is, I think it's something that you touched upon, that we cannot all agree on something, or even on most things. We can't, because we are all different. I can't see any hope of us doing so, and if we all did, we'd be living under a terrible state. Imagine everybody agreed. It can only be if we are forced by a higher power to agree, and secretly we don't. Look at 1984, the book. Everybody was forced to agree, but some people, very few, didn't, secretly didn't, and that'll always come about. And I just want to ask you, what did you say about beauty? That there is a reason why many people agree that things are beautiful?
Yeah, I'm just speculating, because there should be a reason. And maybe the reason is in that there is something common in our experience, that only those who shared this common ideas had better chances to survive, and so we just evolved in the way that we find something pleasant or beautiful and something scary and disgusting. For instance, one example is that most people would find disgusting something that have association with disease. With dirt, with something that really can threaten our life. And there is even some psychological observation that people associate more negative feelings with darkness in general and with dark color, dark skin. And this is true not only for white people, as you could imagine, but even for black people. So for some reason, we have more negative reaction on dark skin. I don't know any commonly accepted explanation for this, but some speculations that it could be related again to dirt, that people don't like to get dirty, or it could be related with just the fear of darkness, because darkness is scary. So it could be dangerous animals, it could be dangerous people in this darkness that you cannot see. So it could be that. But this is just one example, and it's still speculating.
Okay, I don't want to hold it up. I want to talk a bit about beauty later. But thank you very much. But that's a very, very important point about beauty and attractiveness. There's a big difference. Big difference. Somebody can be attractive and not beautiful. But that depends on something. Anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Thank you very much, Michael. Agustin, you're on.
Yes, my turn now. Hi,
Yeah.
hi everyone. I'm sorry, Ron, I'll have to leave as well in like 30 minutes. Just saying, so I'm glad I got a chance to speak now. Well, thank you for the presentation on enhancement and beauty. It was very interesting. And I have just an open reflection on this. I don't have anything really prepared this time. I have like questions over this idea of enhancement. I have read a lot of literature in philosophy of enhancement because it's part of my research. So a few ideas, a few questions that I've got on the idea of enhancement will imply a subtraction of something. I think I had that from your introduction. I will offer the thought of a kind of enhancement that is proposed that it doesn't show any kind of subtraction, and that would be vaccines. So this come from the transhumanist literature, the idea that vaccines are enhancement in the sense that it's enhancing our immune system against a disease, but it doesn't subtract anything because it doesn't take anything away from our bodies, and at the same time, it is something that it doesn't subtract in relation to others. If I am enhanced with a vaccine, I'm not getting better than others. Actually, I stop the propagation of the infection. So actually the others also get better for me. So that could be kind of example of an enhancement that does not imply any subtraction apart from the elimination of the disease. Maybe that's the subtraction there, probably. I don't know. So that's one reflection. Another one is I wonder if we are acknowledging whether there are morals or not behind the enhancement, or kind of like, is there any moral underpinning our sense of enhancement? Kind of like, what when we consider something an enhancement, are we considering that thing? So let's see, for example, right? So the pictures of the James Webb Telescope, wonderful. They are enhancing our knowledge, visual knowledge of the universe, or maybe they are not, as you said, that there are a lot of things. Apart from all the colors that are enhancing the picture, there is the problem of all the colors our eyes cannot see that are not in the telomeres. Wonderful. So are we saying at some point that those images are, so are we saying that, I don't know how to put this, but kind of like, are we saying that that our knowledge of reality is better with those images, and why? So why is it better? What is the moral that now is better before it was worse? So I think there is some morals underpinning this idea, and I think that is related to beauty, and kind of like related to that old Greek idea of how was it? Kalos Kayagathos, the beauty, good and pretty was the a famous idea in the classic Greek. No, that the beauty is good. Another question is on the point of history as collective enhancement of humanity. Absolutely right. Yes, wonderful. I'm wondering if we should go to a previous step and consider writing as enhancement rather than directly history. And Plato had a lovely writing about how writing could enhance us, but also deprive us of memory because we will not use it any longer. No, so I wonder whether the starting point will be writing rather than history as enhancement. And finally, on the idea of on the question that's been going on in the conversation about, and with this I finish, about how maybe we how we define what we see as beauty, and how we recognize that, and where comes our attraction to others. I've just came out to my mind this idea of, I had to look it up, of koinophilia, which is this hypothesis that we find beauty in things that are similar to us, rather than something is better because it's pretty. It's actually because it's similar to us, which is an idea from psychology. And with this I finish. So I'll have one final question, which will be, okay, so an enhancement is something that has gone better, but better for what? Like, if something has gone better, it's because there was a finality, there was a goal, a purpose, and without any purpose, I don't see this idea of betterment. No, like, it's better is walking towards a goal, and it's better because we got closer. So I think at least morals, goals are underpinning the idea of enhancement, and at the same time, in the sense of beauty, we consider enhanced what we consider similar to us. That would be my conclusion. Thank you.
Okay, that's very interesting. So when do you have to go? Because I want to deal with some of those, but I want to hear other people as well. When are you leaving, Agustin?
7:30. Well, in half an hour.
Half an hour. You can't. Sorry, you
But
can't.
I can watch the recording later. I have to.
No,
go. I
no,
have
you
to.
can't. You can't. I've got to answer those. Hi there, Richard. Good to see you.
Hi there. I'm sorry I was late. I was actually 10 minutes early, but Zoom wouldn't let me in, and I had to download an update, and I got impatient, and I must have interrupted the update, and then I really went round in circles. But anyway, so it took me over half an hour to join.
Girls.
There
was definitely enhancement there.
Well, it told me there's an enhancement. In fact, I can't see who else is here. I can only see you, and I presume that you can only see me if you put me.
Really? You can't.
Yeah.
You can't see all
I'm
the people.
sure I could play around with that, but the other people have disappeared when one person's talking. Whoever's talking becomes obscures everything except the very top line. But anyway, let's get on with the actual discussion. Now, as I said, I missed the first half hour, so this is rather difficult. And like everybody else, there's a very important other appointment that's starting any moment, and that's England playing Senegal. But I do have that recorded, and it is only the round ball game, which doesn't really matter, of course. That's because I wasn't any good at football. I was much better at rugby. Okay. When we've been talking about enhancement, you may have already covered this, but it seems to me that people are talking about different things with enhancement. And I'd take it from an ethnological view, an evolutionary view, if you like. And when you mentioned girls with blown up lips, I'm presuming it's a sexual sign, just as I've never actually watched the program, but there's something called Love Island where I believe everybody's got blown up boobs and blown up bums for all I know, and have over enhanced, if you like, some of the signals, and it probably only appeals to youngsters who are purely concerned with the physical rather than the cerebral side of things. Although I must admit, when I was young, I did chase various young ladies too, so I can't really have any moral approval. But what I'm saying is that is one area. I mean, to me, it would be more important to enhance one's brain, I would have thought, or possibly one's physical condition. I mean, if you purely enhance the sexual, you will presumably have lots of babies, but I don't think humanity is going to actually improve its own chances of survival by overcrowding the earth even more than it already is. And I would look towards the way that one can use cybernetics possibly to improve what we've already got. Evolution is strange though, and there's lots of blind alleys. And I mean, maybe you can have two forms of humans, like, what was it called? There was a science fiction novel with the people who actually do the work and the other people who don't any longer. I could remember, but I can't be bothered to stop and try and think. And also, there was something in the Eagle, which probably you, like me, read when we were very young. There was the Venusians, I think they were, and you had a little brainy bloke with a huge head who couldn't actually move around. He had to float around on an air cushion, if I remember correctly. I think they were called the Mekons. But anyway, basically what I'm saying is one has to be careful, otherwise you could in fact move beyond the area. But to me, with education, humans stop having large families. So the purely sexual by itself can not exactly be ignored, but isn't the overriding thing that it might be with some other types of life. Now, it seems to me that already in modern society, if you've had anything to do with teenagers, because I'm assuming that not all of us, but most of us, like Ron and myself, probably sort of pre-mobile phone, or they're not pre-computer literate. And so therefore, it's strange the way that youngsters no longer remember things, but they go to their mobile phone. But you could count Wikipedia and Google as being an enhancement to human memory. You don't have to remember things. And I remember meeting when I was still working, a chap who was a professor at, I think, Reading University, who, when we were talking about cybernetics, he was experimenting with planting chips in his body to help him with various functions. So it seems to me that, I don't know what's happened in the last 20 years, but it seems to me that there are definite possibilities. It's quite likely that rather than a mobile phone, you'll soon be able to have your own implanted chip that allows you to connect, and you just look as if you're looking elsewhere and like you're remembering something, and in fact you'll be connecting up to your own personal database. So people like me, for instance, would no longer have difficulty remembering a face and a name, because you'll be able to instantly see, oh, that's Ron, yes, I remember, and see the connections and then start up a conversation. And it seems to me that with this, we could have the whole of human knowledge just available within our brains. I do remember that one of the, probably Apple, started a certain type of glass where you could see things as you walked along, but I think they had to drop it because it was rather difficult having your own glass showing you something that, as well as what actually where you're walking, you're likely to walk into a manhole or something while concentrating. But it does seem to me that it would be a real enhancement to be able to connect up with the internet wherever you are, connect up with your own personal database wherever you are, maybe be able to, maybe we could improve our IQs rather than, like me, as you get older, are starting to forget people, names, faces, even the track that your brain should be following. So therefore, it really is a question of evolutionary blind alleys and evolutionary assets. And I think our assets could be tied up with the way that science goes and what we can use to help ourselves become more erudite, if you like, more able to connect to the bits we need. Now, some people are specialists and they would have a specialist area in physics or chemistry or whatever, whereas other people like me sort of flit from one area to another and have a look at sociology, anthropology, computing or whatever. But and it would be a huge asset for people like that to be able to actually store up everything that you come across and then try to make sense of it and put together different lines, because I've noticed specialists tend to only think in their speciality. And to me, the whole world is trying to get everything so that it makes sense. And for that, you need to look at all aspects of study. I think I'll stop there. I've probably gone round in circles anyway.
Richard, first of all, you know that Musk is actually going to do it. But
I doubt it.
I
don't think as good as he says he is.
I think he will do it, and I think that what you say will happen at some time. But you look at it as enhancement. But all you're doing is you're going into a database which will be changed all the time, because there's nothing that's there's no perfect knowledge. You go into a computer, you go to Google and you look up stuff. It might be right, it might be wrong, and it'll change. You've got that in your mind going bonkers, going crazy.
Knowledge changes all the time though.
Yeah, I know, but
I mean, the whole point about even in science, as Popper says, you know, the whole thing is falsifying one theory and advancing. Or if you want to go back to Hegel, the whole idea is a synthesis of, well, you know, the whole idea I'm talking about. Basically, knowledge is advancing all the time, and sure, it's changing, but you'll be able to get the latest changes as well. But it would be so nice to be able to remember everything that I studied back when I was 20, whereas quite honestly, a lot of those things have just faded. I mean, if I wanted to look up a law case, not having studied law for 50 something years, I would have to consult books to go to it. If I wanted to look up history, I would have to probably look at books. I can remember some. Shakespeare even, I can remember quite a lot of speeches off by heart, but even that's getting shaky. It would be so great to be able to remember everything just by flicking a switch. I think that humans and machines are going to combine. The only way AI makes sense is actually if we become some type of in between human machine interface.
I just want to mention that if you could remember everything, you'd go insane.
That is probably true. Who knows? Maybe we already are, though.
But that's true. Anybody who comes there definitely is. But actually remembering everything is so bad for you. There's a reason why things we do forget. There have been cases, I don't remember the name now, of somebody who remembered every single thing that ever happened and what day it was. That person was in a terrible state, terrible. And I just imagine that you'd walk around like that, and the whole business of having a database that keeps on changing inside your head, you wouldn't last very long. You keep on changing. You have to, I mean, it's like looking up stuff. It keeps on changing in your head.
That's
Terrible.
why, I mean, it would be like an early expert system, whereas you call on an exterior database, but the bit that's important is you actually using those facts to make rules and to decide what is happening.
So here-
I mean,
here-
you don't,
here-
the whole point is you'll have to remember less because it's already stored somewhere for you.
Ron, since I actually,
Terry, yes,
could I comment a little bit?
yes, please do.
Well, I just, the area that we're talking about here, one of the names for it is cyber prosthetics. And it's a very active area of research. It's oriented, for instance, for people like Alzheimer's disease. The idea is not to flood the people with information, but to give them access to information that otherwise their brains are losing. And then it's a whole range of studies on that. And it includes trying to understand the process of forgetting itself, which is, turns out we remember a lot more than we think we do, but our brain actively suppresses it. And that's why you have these, these savant situations. They apparently have more access to those suppressed memories than we realize, but our brain.
That's the links. It's the links that get lost, isn't it?
What's it?
It's the links that get lost. It's like an actual database, the way that links from one to another no longer work properly. So the facts are there, but the links are no longer actually accessing them.
And Richard, what's interesting is our brains actively have mechanisms to suppress those links. This is something that's just now, actually fairly
I
recently,
didn't know that. Yeah.
some studies on it. It's fascinating and baffling, but our brains need to do that for the same reason Ron mentioned, that otherwise you get totally lost. So the figuring out what to enhance and what not to enhance. This is an issue of enhancement, is really critical to making this kind of thing work well. But memory, so this is it's an active area, and Ron, it has to be more carefully done than just flooding your brain.
I agree there.
That's the whole issue, is how do you do it where it makes sense? And I've considered Google to be an asset to my memory for decades. I always view it that way because it doesn't matter if it's interfaced directly in my brain or it's on my keyboard. If somebody's on the other side of a wall and they can't tell how I'm doing it, what's the difference? It's a collective intelligence thing where I'm actually using that asset as part of what I do. And the net result is I can do things I couldn't do otherwise. So I think we're all like that. Socializing with each other is part of that. We enhance each other continually. So anyway,
Definitely.
here.
Thank you.
That was my point.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hi, Mark. Sorry about the delay. You're on.
The delay was much enjoyed, actually. I'm going to try and keep this a little bit short because you raised so many amazing points, including this last one. This last one about Elon was one I was going to bring up. And that I think it's a prescient time to bring up the topic of enhancement because we're about to go through like 100 years worth of health advances by 2030. And one of them looks like it's going to happen with neural implants. I don't know if anybody watched Elon's recent announcement 2 days ago, but he's going to have FDA approval to put these implants in humans by the summertime. This is not 2, 5, 10 years away. This is happening within this year. And he said he's going to be one of the first ones to get it. And he said he's doing this because of an esoteric reason about enhancement. In that he said, you will not be able to keep up with AI because it's millions of times faster than you. And he says, unless we become hybridized with them, yeah, we are going to be left behind because there's something that they're doing that we can't do, and it's going to leave us behind. But I'd like to propose an idea that what real enhancement is and what real beauty is and what real truth is all the same thing. And it's what we call genuine reason. Whatever is reasonable is rational, or whatever is reasonable is actual, whatever is actual is reasonable. And that when we tie into AI or anything that might have more truth than us, what it's tapping into is this genuine sense of reason that is working its way out through history. And I think, Terry, you were saying that Einstein said the self is the beginning of everything. And I think in some profound way, there's some truth here where the most universal I, the most universal self is also the most beautiful self, the most truthful self, and it's the self that unites all the other selves. And if we create an artificial intelligence that's not of that kind of inner truth, that inner rationality, the actual rationality, we're going to get an external enhancement, which is actually a canceling. So Ron, I would say that if we're not careful in terms of centricist, in terms of our history, it doesn't always progress for individuals. You can actually end up in nullities through false logic or false reason. But in terms of the most universal form of history, it does seem to be progressing through individuals, through their falsities and through actual enhancements, this more universal logical enhancement that you were touching on, I think, when you were quoting Paul Dirac, where Paul Dirac is skirting the edges of this kind of reason. He's saying, you know, as long as you have beauty in your theory, it doesn't matter the experiment. But actual rationality has to be both. But what he's touching on is the pure element of logic in what mathematical theory is. But mathematical theory is actually one layer higher than the true abstract layer, the true perfection, which is pure infinite logic that is self-coherent in itself. But the reason why experiment is important is because for us, we have to align it correspondingly with the external world, because the logic, what is beautiful in the external world, is that rationality progressing. So when we do science or we do art, art is just this perfect logic in its ideal form, in sensuous form. But a higher form of expressing that is actually religion, surprisingly. I know, Ron, you don't understand that yet, but religion was the purification of art into higher levels of reason, but it held the universal component, but in sensuous form, which means it got tainted by our false logic. And then the last and highest stage is when history reveals this universal and pure philosophy in the element of pure reason itself, like Paul Dirac said. But the reason why theory can be beautiful like art is because real reason, like how do you know if you have real reason? You know it almost when you see it. It's like what Steve Jobs said when he was designing his products, right? The iPhone, he said, had the perfect essence. And essence is beautiful because it doesn't have too much, but it also doesn't have too little. It is the perfect amount that fulfills some kind of function to raise reason to a higher level. And that can change over time as we change. And it's going to happen big time with Neuralink and Elon. But I feel like the most important thing to make a comment on is how do we agree upon what is this rationality? What is the real sense of beauty and truth? Because without that sense of agreement, you can't have that universal self. So that universal process, if we don't nail this down soon, and we get this explosion of these permutations and combinations, which actually obscures the essence of what humanity is really about, then we can actually get lost and sort of cancel ourselves in an infinite loss of that real logic. So I think that this idea of super coherence of what real genuine rationality is the instinct and kernel of the essence of humanity. And the best mode to pursue that, the most universal mode to pursue that, is probably philosophy itself, but in the universal form where we embrace religion and art and all the other forms in their state of beauty by recognizing the universal. So I guess the last thing to say is, if we have to show this by force, we're going to destroy ourselves. The only way to have this kind of beauty and truth come forward in its true universality is through a process of self-recognition. And through self-recognition, learning, cultivation, I think like meetings like this is the real way towards enhancement. Okay, I hope that was good. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you very much. You know I don't agree with most of that, right? But that's but I agree with the last sentence. Meetings like this is enhancement. It brings us forward because people put different ideas together and they meld. And when we leave, we think about them, and it sometimes does make an impression. And even if we don't agree, it also makes an impression. So my discussions with you are very useful, even though we don't agree. I mean, basically, really basically don't agree, but it doesn't matter at all, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think it matters to you either. So, am I right somewhere?
I do think that agreement is important at some point, but it has to be that essential agreement where we both recognize, hey, this is actually the best truth there is, because it solves all the other problems that don't make as much sense. But that sense making is the hard part. And I feel like you do a great job here by keeping the space open dialectically to allow the full spectrum to be explored. And then we really can know if what we land on really is the most universal thought that satisfies the beauty of all our perspectives, while also purifying the false elements that are particular to our own limitations.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to you later about beauty and about truth. Okay, don't forget them. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, James. Welcome again, and thank you for waiting.
Oh, that's a pleasure. Thank you. This great discussion, and the thing that I wanted to comment on was the idea of hybrid enhancement, because I think that's been very relevant to me. I had a career as a jazz musician, and I think that's actually what jazz improvisers do, and also classical musicians. You know, if you're going from something like a style, an early 19th century style, into Beethoven, there's kinds of, I think, hybrid enhancement that are going on. Beethoven probably enhances some of the harmonic ideas of the early 19th century, the late 18th century, early 19th century, that period called the classical period. But it also brings up this this idea of subtraction as well. We're going to play things slower sometimes, and they won't sound like dirges. They'll sound like pure creativity. So Beethoven adds a lot of value in the area of additions and subtractions, and that's kind of like the idea of jazz improvisation too. In the 20th century, the jazz artists, I was riding in my car listening to music and with my daughter and my adult daughter who was visiting me, and I just found out, you know, like, wow, I'm quite the critic, because I sort of like understand everything that's going on. I can talk about different styles, how different people have different styles for different reasons. Someone wants to be more commercial, someone wants to be more well understood by the audience. Somebody wants people to be able to talk over the piano solo, believe it or not, that people play piano so that other people can have conversations if they want to while they're playing. So there's different styles for different situation. And this idea of and of course we have the great ones, you know, people like let's say from the 1970s, Miles Davis, Bill Evans, adding not just creating addition, but also subtraction, adding rests where the rests weren't there before, and to the jazz styles. And also subtracting some of the chromaticity that had been used in the 1940s by the great technicians like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. So there's this kind of give and take in art, and I think that I can and it's very evident in music. And I just wanted to, you know, and somebody else could talk about, has probably already talked about some of the, I think you talked about some of the great painters, but you saw kind of like a relaxing of detail, but it could go both ways. And so I, you know, like for example, from Picasso to Jackson Pollock is a very good example. Jackson Pollock was obsessed with Picasso, and he was an expansion of Picasso's concept with his abstraction, by adding another layer of abstraction on top of it. So yeah, I'm really beginning to get what you're interested in. The other thing I wanted to mention is this fits in very well with Kant's categories, the you know, quantity, quality, relation, and modality, but especially the idea of like quantity, addition and subtraction actually, which is a factor in art, factor in music, factor in design, and trying to achieve a change in quality, so that as a result of addition and subtraction, you end up with something of a different quality, either something artistic or something useful. So somebody was talking about beauty before. So it's the same thing. We're all doing the same thing here. and we end up, and then on the other side of things, we end up understanding relations, considering relations, and considering modalities of things. So, but those are the afterburners of Kant's theory of transcendental idealism. So yeah, I think this is a very good discussion, because it opens up that whole area of design, of innovation, design, and which confronts us in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. I think it was Augustine who talked about whether things are getting better or not, and what getting better means. Did you mention that, Augustine?
That was
Yes?
me. That was me.
Yeah.
That was me. That was considering on how we have a supposition of something getting better, and therefore the ways to reach there is what we consider enhancement. Yes, that was always a goal of betterment.
Yeah, that's of course problematic, because that means
Thank you.
it means that you're approaching something, meaning that there is an end somewhere. That going forward means you're approaching the end, the truth, and I don't think we can ever get there. That would be unlike what Mark says. Sorry, Mark. I think that the end is a disaster. It's not good. The end is the end of humanity. It'll be something else. The moment that we reach the end, we've stopped. We can never reach the end, because we're human. Humans can't reach an end, and going forward as a goal means that you want to go to that end, but we never want to get there. Never. That's my opinion, my humble opinion.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. I agree with you there, and my feeling is that it's rationality that gets us through this process of continuous improvement. The continuous improvement is not simply an illusion. It is the process of people employing rationality in human affairs, and that, as Hegel would have said, human spirit. So it's this process of participating in human affairs. In this process, we seek continual improvement, not just for ourselves, families, our lives, the situations at work, society, and the world. And so this kind of like rational approach to humanism, which I would call it that, but it's not the humanism that I think a lot of people talk about. It's not like a kind of like a fixed humanism. It's more of like just simply a progressivism, an understanding that using rationality, life is progressive, and at all levels, from self-interest all the way up to the society itself, and that this happens through the rational employment of this idea of enhancement that you're discussing today, Ron. It's a brilliant focus. I think I completely on board.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you. The Atom. Hi, welcome. Good to see you. You're the only one who's actually doing some exercise here, which is very good. Anyway, welcome, and
hey, thank you, Ron. Thank you very much. Tony, on my iPhone. All right, first of all, I have not really gotten a specific definition of enhancement, and we're using a word, and we're associating a lot of different meanings to enhancement. Let me forward a possible modified thing. An enhancement in the end is a change, right? If you're into Stoicism, you'd say, okay, what emotional attribute do we attach to that change? Is it positive? Is it negative? So far, most people are attaching a positive. So for example, enhancement to a betterment of something. But it's a change. Let us take away whether it's for the good or the bad or the whatever. Yes, once you've enhanced something, it has changed. It is not what it was before. That is there. Another thing here is, I do believe that human beings are evolving, okay? I remember, I'm heavily into science fiction, right? Because I do see we're in whatever we can perceive, we ultimately, for some amazing reason, usually create. It's just amazing. It's like magic. It is magic because we're science, we have the empirical system and so forth, and we can put formulas, or at least we adapt formulas to explain and whatever, and even to predict. Magic is just something we don't know about yet, but we will eventually, hopefully, move towards. So I believe from when I was quite young, I said to myself, yeah, well, actually, maybe I was in my early adulthood. Why do I have to be teaching my children all the things and experiences that I actually went through? Why could I not just create, just slot it into their brains, like Johnny Mnemonic, those type of things, and they would immediately have that experience and so forth. That, I think, is coming. As somebody mentioned, cybernetics and so forth, we're going that way. We have to go that way. And what happens is that, yes, as we currently are with our brains, we might find it challenging to accomplish that, but we evolve, right? Google and so forth is, I was a pharmacist in a prior life, and I had to know all of this interactions and various things and so forth. Now there's no real reason for a pharmacist. You have a database that can tell you what are the contraindications, what are the problems, and so forth, right? That, in my mind, is where human beings are going to go towards. Last thing here on beauty. Beauty is really in the eyes of the beholder, right? If we do not find the opposite sex or whatever attractive, the human species, well, we could artificially create ourselves, test tubes and artificial wombs and so forth like that. I mean, we could do that, but I don't know if we want to do that. I will close by saying a lot of understanding human beings is not in science per se, or even philosophy. It's in psychology, sociology, group dynamics, right? And the evolution of man. Because a lot of our behaviors are not rational, right? I do not think that, anyway, enough for me. I've overstayed my time. Thank you.
No, you haven't. No, it's fine. Thank you very much. I want to say something about beauty and attractiveness, attraction, but I'll wait a bit because Olga's been waiting so long. Thank you very much. Is that your name, the Atom? Is that how I refer to you?
I'm Tony, but
Tony.
I like the Atom.
Okay, I like Atom too, but Tony is a bit more, I can relate to Tony. It's difficult for me to relate to the Atom, but it's okay. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you. Hi, Olga.
Okay, hi. I'm not sure, I was not sure that I want to say anything today, but as soon as people start to talk about mythology of the future and creating it, Yes, I could not I could not resist because it's one of my primary subjects. So I was born in the Soviet Union during the space race, and I was a young girl when with all these expectation of extremely bright future, and even serious scientists were saying that by 2000 we will have we will be the member of intergalactic civilization and something like this. So everybody talks about Musk and his brain project, but Brainlink project. But guys, I already said it probably on all meetups. Neil Harbison is has antenna in his head for more than 15 years. Elon Musk is just genius enhancer. He enhance other people inventions. You could search Neil Harbison. He is cyber artist who has antenna, I said, more than 15 years, and even going sometimes to custom from one country to another. He is probably from Great Britain and living here in the States. And there is other people who have chips in their heads and could turn on and off electricity. But guys, the first question is, it's how hackable it is and how controllable it is. And I'm not saying by government, by just teenager next door could control your chip in your head. It's first thing, and of course it could be controlled. We could be controlled of any government and whatever, any company that wants to control you in by particular project. And I worked also in prime area of enhancement in advertisement, and I know a lot about it. But I would like to say about something different. It did not start with humans. If we go to like Nest, isn't enhancement for birds or what it is? It's improvement, enhancement, or all these bright colors of flowers. And there is very often example of evolution going in very unpredictable ways. It's peacock tail. It's absolutely disadvantages in evolutionary. It's very heavy. It's bird became very vulnerable for attack. But females peacocks love it. And actually what is going on with this, it's not and we are kind of in our society, what we are doing, it's, yes, it was already, Ron already said it, that anything could be defined as enhancement for us to do nothing and then don't have any effort even to remember anything, just watching Netflix and that's it. And so what is actually philosophy? If not, what is actually academia? In academia, what they are doing, they just show the peacock tails. That's it, what we are doing. So it did not start with humanity. It started much earlier by evolution. And this is the question, why? And Michael, who left in the beginning, he tried to ask this question, why it's happening, what we are doing. And actually it's nothing but just showing our peacock tails. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Your question, why? Your question is why advancement, or what are we doing and why?
No, my question is, my statement is that it started long ago before humanity. It's peacock tail, it's the example of absolutely evolutionary disadvantage, but females of peacock like this tail, they love it, you see? So it was developed during evolution. So everything was developed during evolution by process of something changes. And in academia and in philosophy and anywhere in human endeavor, people just showing their peacock tails. They already, we don't have evolutionary advantage of anything that we develop, but we still participating in it.
You don't think there's any advancement?
No, it's of course, no, what you call advancement,
That's the
what you
question.
call enhancement. You see, what is advancement? Now, if we talk about our society and our technological advancement, it comes in the price of huge ecological crisis. So is it advancement? Is it enhancement? Is it crisis? What it is? You see, so it's, of course, we cannot, and you're absolutely correct, that we cannot discuss everything in the same time. And of course, we separate something from something. And probably this is the biggest problem, that we cannot see everything in the same time. And we advance and enhance some particular area in the price of damaging something around. You see, so it's, but it's, thank you, very, very interesting, and I think very, very important question to discuss. Is it enhancement? Is it advancement? Is actually what we are doing it, advancing and enhancing ourselves. What is going around, how it's affecting everything. This is, I think, biggest question right now, how we can fix what we damaged by our enhancement, and how far we are going to damage is still considered that it's good progress. And we have to do it not only outside us, but also inside us. How we could damage what is going on inside us.
You're right, you're right. No, I agree with you, except to see whether something is enhanced, you have to look back and say, was it better in the past? Was it better in the 16th century, the 12th century? Was it better
Again, you're
now?
talking about a human civilization, but I was started with, it was started before with animals who also during evolution were like enhancing their ability. For example, claws. You see, for example, again, peacock tails. Peacock tails is the common example of something that was developed and was absolutely disadvantageous for the particular, for this bird.
I don't know. They don't the males get their females?
Yes, I'm saying that
Well, that's good,
females
isn't it?
love it, but
Okay,
actually it's very disadvantageable because it's very heavy. Bird became very vulnerable, but still females love it. So what, and I compared this tail with showing this tale with our academia and philosophy and a lot of sciences, that what they are doing, they just developing their peacock tails and
That's nothing.
presenting them. That's it.
Yeah, but that's fine. They're getting what they want.
Yes,
Well,
they
that's
get
great.
what they want.
That's
I'm not
wonderful.
saying that it's not fine.
Okay,
I'm saying that's what is going on.
that's okay. We
It's
also
not different from what evolution developed. We also like part of this. And that's it.
okay. Anyway, I'm all for having fun.
But
Okay.
Ron, that is why I referred to ethnology and evolutionary blind alleys, because of things like peacock tails or birds of paradise,
But that's not.
and humans who adapt their bodies with enhancements that, in my opinion, don't actually enhance them. As someone's just said on the chat, there are girls, I've met a couple who actually had their boobs reduced because having large boobs actually is not an advantage. It may be an advantage, you know, sort of on if you want to get on Playboy or something like that, but it's not an advantage in real life.
Getting on Playboy is a great advantage in life for somebody who wants to make money. Why is that not an advantage? Of course it is.
Well, I've never had to live with that, but I mean,
Okay.
you get my point. It
Yes,
depends
but
if you want to run, if you want to dance, if you want to live normally, because you've got this bloody weight all the time. I believe it's the same for men who are freaks as well. I mean, you know, sort of, I don't know. I've never been that way, but I mean,
well, there you are then. If a woman has got nothing else but wants to get onto Playboy, why would you want to stop that? Why is that not advancement?
You said nothing else.
No, that's all right.
You said nothing else.
No,
but you need other things rather than just that. And anyway.
But not everybody comes to meetings like this. Some people want to be celebrities, some people want to be peacocks, and some people want to get onto Playboy. And why would you?
Are an evolutionary blind alley eventually, because I mean, we had some that were breeding next door to us on the big house next door had some, and the foxes got them all eventually because they can't fly very well. They're not really evolutionarily adapted to survival. The whole point is survival.
But Richard, if we were running around the jungle and we were eaten by lions, then we're also not very, we're not in a blind alley. We just can't run fast enough, and nor can peacocks. Why does that go against evolution?
Our blind alley allows us to develop bows and arrows, guns, and unfortunately be likely to wipe out lions, tigers, and other wildlife where we should be trying to live with them. But because we have developed large brains, we are, in fact, at the moment, on the top of the evolutionary scale, but we're wiping out the whole planet, which seems to me to also be really stupid. So therefore, this could also be an evolutionary blind alley, and the ants or the cockroaches or the rats will actually benefit eventually from what we're doing.
Okay, fair enough. I'll get back to you. Sorry.
We can continue this argument privately.
Yeah.
I think I've quite forgotten my original point. I was fascinated by all the comments. Ron, there is a concept in biology of sexual investment where the issue is that there's a cost, and sometimes the costs get very, very skewed in ways that can put a species, an entire species, not just the males, at incredible risk if just something changes ever so slightly in their environment. The peacocks get away with it because they're in a fairly mellow environment, but you can only get peacock feathers when you're in a mellow place where there's sufficiently safe situations where they can do that kind of outrageous over display. And yet it goes on and on. I mean, mooses with their antlers, take your choices. Some spider species, the male, the biggest risk for the male is that the female uses them as a snack. So, you know, it's great for the eggs, not the greatest thing for the male. So there's always a cost. There's always an interesting cost interplay that goes on in these things. So enhancement has a cost function to it for those kinds of things. It's not that you can't do it, but those male peacocks do pay a price for it. And the entire species can pay a price for it, and the entire species can get wiped out by doing that. So it's a fascinating, you know, interplay back and forth. I think my original comment I was just going to make out, make the point that it's fascinating that one point, yeah, Elon Musk is just borrowing technology. This I can remember a meeting about 10 years ago, I think, where a guy from the Air Force was volunteering to have a memory implant put into his brain. We're all rolling our eyes. It's always the jet pilot, you know, I will do this for my, you know, sometimes the macho thing gets a little carried away on that, but it's an old technology, at least in the base, not basics, so just as old as the same. It's been around for quite some time. Elon Musk is doing his marketing thing on enhancing that. So it's but he's certainly not the originator of some of the concept. How well he'll do, it's hard to say. Just like Facebook is doing a disastrous job of this metaverse, because they're way behind the technology. They're using an old base. It's doesn't mean they won't succeed, but they just, you know, they're doing things people have been doing for 15 years, and then they're not doing it well. So virtual reality has been around. My comment I thought I originally was going to do is Dirac. It's ironic. I think of him as one of the more pragmatic physicists. He used math. He used it sloppily sometimes. His idea of beauty was simplicity. And that's where he found things. He said, I think the world is linear algebra, simplistic. Don't ask me why. I just think the world is simple. And that was his idea of beauty. The current idea of beauty in mathematics is something horrendously different. It says, how can I elaborate to the nth degree 1,000 things so I have a mosaic that's so big and so gigantic and nobody can see it? And a lot of people seriously think that's beautiful. These are not the same definitions of mathematical beauty. And whenever people say that word, a phrase, I always get worried because it depends on what you mean. Because the way they use mathematical beauty back in Dirac's era is very, very different from how it's used now. And I'm more in the Dirac scale that his assumption of simplicity as being beautiful was incredibly productive for him. And he came out with some interesting things, but he was not a perfectionist. I mean, mathematicians spent years trying to formalize what he did, and I would say they didn't really succeed even at that. And other than that, I think that was just miscellaneous comments, and I'm done.
Thank you, Terry. I'm gonna get back to beauty at some time. Debbie.
Thank you. By the way, and probably Richard's aware of it, that England scored too.
Oh, thank you. I'm not aware yet. I'm going to watch it in a moment.
Don't give the game away, literally.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, it has something to do with beauty or not. But I thought of giving my small contribution and did think about Hume. And Ron, you mentioned Hume very briefly, and I did notice in your introduction, and then of course that brought me also to Kant, well, I've studied Kant and Hume really long time ago, and especially the third critique about judgment and aesthetics. So it might sound a bit, well, it's not that deep, but the connection I wanted to make, and especially with the discussion about Playboy and beauty and all that, Kant as well as Hume make the connection with beauty and moral judgment, so that something that is beautiful or is also moral. So the connection is not only with physical objects in art, but actually as a moral disposition. If we see, or we feel with Hume, morality disposition, moral dispositions and virtues are sentiments, and not nothing that, it's not something that derives from rationality. So when you see or you feel that something is right, wrong, for Hume, this is a sentiment. It's not something rational. And with Kant, Kant saw beauty as a symbol of morality, and he connects the both notions with the concept of duty. So we grasp, or we are attracted, or we are yearn for beauty, because this is part of being a moral human being. So I thought of perhaps directing the discussion also to or to ask you what you thought about the connection of beauty and morality. And that is something that we as humans, when we see things that are beautiful, we could also, and I'm not talking about art, that we could be, it could be also good deeds, acts of goodness. And we also tend to, in our regular language, call them beautiful acts. So there is a connection between beauty, morality, virtue, in this sense, not only in art in a way of perception, but as a way of behavior, of an act, of the way to behave in a moral disposition. So that was my point on that.
Could I ask you a question, Debbie, there?
Yeah.
As I remember, and I mean, it's 40, 50 years since I last read Kant, but I seem to remember he said something about the fact that the view from the mountain isn't in itself sublime, it's the effect on the mind of the beholder. And it seems to me that the beholder, if the beholder doesn't seem to see the sublime effect, then it isn't there. And that occurs with any type of beauty. It depends on whether or not the beauty causes the person who's looking at it to appreciate it.
Yeah, there is, I think, I don't know what Kant would say about it. I
He
wouldn't
said
know
something about that, but
yeah,
I can't remember exactly. It was the fact that the view
yes,
wasn't sublime by itself. It was a catalyst, if you like.
Yes, it causes you, it makes you to want to conform to the duty of moral obligation. This is Kant. You don't do it because it is it brings to good consequences, but it is your duty to.
I didn't get any of the moral from him. I just got the fact that he sat up there on the mountain and said, wow, you know, sort of that instant communication, which if you are religious, you can put in a religious context. But if you're not religious, like Ron and myself, you
and
can
Kant
say
wasn't
you're just
religious.
appreciating, yeah, I would say
Yes.
so as well, appreciating the beauty of nature or appreciating the beauty of a female form or a male form or whatever, you know, sort of however you take it, or a painting or music or literature.
Yeah, and I think that's perhaps what Kant meant for him. It was a beauty is universal. I don't think I could say Ron objective, but it is universal, like the will to for duty, to do good. This is something that is innate. It is something that we need to do as human beings, and it is humanly universal in that, and therefore we all tend to want to go to the sublime, to the beautiful.
Except that having taught people that catalyst may only work in a quarter of the people you're talking to, or whatever. The interest in, it doesn't matter what subject you're talking about or what you're looking at, the number of people that respond is necessarily limited. And so therefore there are purely off, sort of maybe 70% of people it goes straight past.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
But
yeah.
But no, but you said, Debbie, that all people, and Richard is saying, no, there are X% of people. I don't think
they're
that
not
all...
Kantians.
Ah,
It,
okay.
but Kant has, yeah, but his theory is a very, you've got the principle, you need to be, you need to go through like the categorical law. You need to be aware of what you're doing. I mean, you could be also utilitarian, but according to Kant, the way, if you want, you can act immorally, of course, and but if you want to reach the sublime, or if you want to behave in the moral and a moral way, then you need to go through, you need to abide and to follow the law, the rules. And perhaps 70% of the people don't do it. But I think with Kant, it means it is universal in the fact that we all are able to do it. It's universal like time and space, if we can, if we go to these categories. And so we could all fall out of the window, but we all know not to do. I mean, if we don't, we know what to do, and some of us don't. But I think it's, yeah, if that's what you mean, Richard.
You realize that when you say something like all, I sit up, because there's no such thing. I mean, psychopaths don't go through anything that you said, or that Kant would say that.
That's why they're psychopaths.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's why you know how to define psychopaths, because there is a way, or there is the right thing to do. I mean, according to Kant, and then you'd get to the right thing to do if you have a moral dilemma, and you have, so Kant would give you the way. He would say, yeah, I think babies are not rational beings in potential, and perhaps also psychopaths as well, or they had the potential, but they're not going through the thinking, the thought of abiding the law.
It doesn't even have to be psychopaths, though. Anybody who's mixed with people, anybody who's taught people, can see the eyes of people who light up when you mention ideas, and the others who, oh, well, if I've got a path to, I'll try and get a grade, but, sort of, I don't really give a 4x about the subject matter. There's a real difference in loads of people. And I'm not saying some people are good people and other people are bad people, because some of the people who don't give a damn about philosophy, say, are excellent craftsmen and are really nice people and have good family, sort of, and do all the right things, but they just don't care about the thing that moves you. Whereas other people really light up immediately you say something that's interesting. Yes, no?
Yeah, I agree on that. I think Ron doesn't agree about the all. So I think
neither of us agree about the all.
Well, we all have the potential, I would say. I think. Well, as human beings, as having some sort of shared cognitive ability.
You're going to get into
and
you're going to get into Mark's territory in a minute if you're not careful.
well, yes, we do have all the potentials. I do agree. I do believe in that. And I think that perhaps surrounding backgrounds, upbringing, culture, and other, let's say, secondary qualities that we go through in life make it different, or change that, or make it impossible. But well, we could now go into the discussion: are people born good or evil? But since it can't really be proven, actually, there's been research about, with babies, or whether people are born good or evil, and they're actually good, born good. No, but I think that's the researchers. Some of the research I have read are that people, either they're born neutral, whatever that means, but they even in a practical way, or in a way to live, it's better to be good than evil.
You're using better again. Better for whom?
For yourself and for life. I mean, it's trivial what I'm saying, because most people, if you do evil, you will get caught and you will be put in prison and you will lose your freedoms and life.
Doesn't evil presuppose, though, a religious context?
No. Then I mean,
good is socialized,
in a criminal
evil
way.
is not socialized.
Okay, it's possible to say just better for survival, for prolonging your personal life in these particular circumstances, in this particular environment. So it's not better for everybody, for you to prolong your existence in this particular environment. It's adaptation. You adapt more or better, or whatever you say. That's probably the meaning.
Yeah, it's also for you, Richard, Ron, you want to live around good people.
Socialized.
And socialize. So it's a bit like Davidson, the charity principle. Yeah, we do tend to assume that people don't want to harm us most of the time, and that people are rational beings, and that people would behave in a social, and a sociable, and would want to get along, because it is also better for survivalism. That's for sure. And it's better for society, as society cannot survive in a criminal or in bad circumstances.
I don't think the mafia would agree with you, by the way.
That's do you want to live in next to
No,
the
I
mafia?
don't.
Exactly.
I don't, but they do. That's the point.
But that's exactly you are, when you say the mafia or criminal, we're already defining them as a bad or an immoral stance. Would you like your kids to join the mafia? No. Would you like them to join gangs? No. Would you like them to? So from the beginning, we know this is not a society we want to live in. So it's better for us.
For us, yes, but we all live in bubbles.
We want to live in a good bubble.
I agree.
And a bigger one, because
mafia want to live in a mafia bubble.
True, and luckily it's a smaller one.
I'm not so sure, actually. Anyway, look, thank you very much. I'll call you back in a minute. Mark, do you mind if we go to Sarah, because she hasn't talked yet? Is that all right with you?
Yeah, I was waiting till everybody went. It looked like it was drying up there, but then Terry had to say the Dirac thing, so.
Sarah, are you there? Do you want to put your your video on by any chance?
I do. No, sorry, I cannot turn on my video. So,
Okay.
But can I go on with that
Yes,
video?
yes, please do, please do.
Yeah. So I was hoping to bring the topic back to the center of what we were discussing previously about enhancements, technological or STEM-based enhancements, and how the implication of that. So I wanted to kind of build up on what Atom said. I really think it's I want to discuss the Habermas perspective on the issue on this topic and what he said regarding the colonial implications of enhancement. And first of all, we have to discuss who is it that who's the enhancement for, who's benefiting from it exactly, and at whose cost is it benefiting, and also the evolutionary aspect of it, obviously from the very broader scale of Darwinian perspective. What about the periphery? What about I mean, if we haven't even perfected, haven't overcame our inherent human imperfections and biases and all that yet, we haven't even learned to exist in a room without having some kind of bias towards the other, towards people, towards the element in a room that seems exogenous to us, that seems like it's the other, and we cannot coexist with in the same room. How obviously it will be applied on broader scale, and the same humanistic characteristics will be in the hands of will be applied to the person who has those powers to apply those enhancements, to give us those enhancements. And for that reason, I have an inherent skepticism view of this enhancement technologies, because like Atom, I feel like there is a lot of human imperfections on sociological, on psychological level, that needs to be perfected, that needs to be addressed, and that will allow us to be right now we cannot even have free speech. We are still debating on that. There is many social there are many technologies that cannot even offer that right now. There is censorship in media, there's censorship in AI. There is research indicating that the AI has bias as well, racial bias. And if we cannot resolve that right now, any other enhancements will have that kind of bias as well. Also, I do agree with, I do have the view of anti-modernist or skeptical views of modernism, similar to Foucault, on that humans, whoever has power, are inherently subject to kind of abuse it, kind of would not be sorry, one second, egalitarian about it. So humans, we are not all born evil, but power makes us kind of not so equitable in our application, and that's my view. So for that reason, I view the enhanced technology as really not so helpful for the broader humanity until we don't address the social and psychological abuses of power that's happening in our society right now.
Yes, thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much. I remember is this going back hundreds, thousands of years, where every generation says that things are really bad and it was much better before. I remember my parents saying, oh, this is music, this is terrible, there's no melody here. And they were talking about the Beatles, okay? There's no melody, this is terrible, and people are not polite. This has been going back thousands of years. There's a record of Cicero saying something similar. People are not polite anymore. They used to be much better in the old days. That is what's going on, and we're in the same position. As terrible as that sounds, we're also saying that things were much better in the past, and enhancement is not good. Things are getting worse. We're destroying the world, etc. So maybe we are, but I'm not sure how different we are, and we have medicines, and people are living longer and healthier, etc., etc. I don't think it's all gloom. I think that we are looking at it in the way everybody did before us. And I'm not saying that everything's perfect in any way whatsoever, and nor did those that came before us, by the way. And I think it's important to keep that in some sort of perspective. But that's just my little thing here. So thank you very much. And there's people saying some really interesting things by typing. I wish they'd say them out loud because they're very, very interesting. Mark, yes.
My second time, but I'll keep it short.
No,
but
it's
I
okay.
couldn't resist, Terry. And maybe I'll pick up with the last speaker here, Syra, and the power dynamic of what enhancement does to people. I would say that the morality and what you said about simplicity and mathematics, Terry, are all the same type of enhancement, where the type I think Paul was talking about, that the universe is somehow linear or something like this. I think there is the kind of simplicity that is inherent in his type of mathematical or his logicking of the universe, physics, is the same as the moral argument that I think Debbie was making, and even the Habermasian comments and Foucauldian comments. It's very simple once you grasp the essence of things. That means you don't have too much, you don't have too little, right? So a lot of the theories we have today are trying to approximate universality, which is beauty and the truth. They're trying to approximate it, but they're not doing it in the essential way, which means they have a whole bunch of permutations and combinations that makes it look ugly because they're not essential, right? They're just trying to work out what the essence is. But when you find the essence, you get a Buckminster Fuller kind of simultaneity, his principle of ephemeralization, where you do more with less. And I think Paul Dirac is correct. I think there is one new theory of physics for general relativity that's coming out now that is much more simple, but explains general relativity and special relativity and all the equations that we have building on each other. And I think it probably will win a Nobel Prize in a couple of years because it's so simple, but you don't lose anything. It's doing more with less. And I think morality is kind of the same thing. Doing the right thing sometimes isn't that hard, you know, even in complex situations. I think that if you get lost in the abstract version of science, you end up in a type of enhancement that needs a negative enhancement. Negative enhancement means you reduce it, right? And I think you're spot on. I think, Terry, if I'm understanding, Ron, I think if I'm understanding you, I think you're right with those negative enhancements. That's why they exist, is because we say, well, we should go back to the past. It was so pure in the past when the principle was pure. But you can't do that because the principle is happening in like plural form and you're finding a limit of it, but you have to go through that stage to get to the next level of complexity. And every single level of complexity in human society is trying to approximate the universal. I think if we take this new form of physics, like the Diracian kind of physics, and approximate the universal of current really complex, ugly theories are doing, I think that will be the essence of the next stage of evolution. And it will impact our morality and how we relate to each other, because how we relate to each other is based on the logic that we have, the rationality at every stage, but the stages build on each other. And that's why morality comes towards the end as a higher social phenomenon, or even a psychological phenomenon, I think the Adam was saying. But ultimately, the only domain of human knowledge, which gets to the real end goal of true enhancement, is the domain of human reason, which treats reason in its native element as pure thought, not as psychology, not as sensuousness, not as art, not as religion, not as anything, except the pure universal element itself. And the only domain of humanity or only domain of science or knowledge that we have that does that is, or claims to do that, is philosophy, because philosophy is the pursuit of wisdom. And I think that we can, I think if we take it seriously that this process of reason is happening at all levels as enhancement in all areas, I think that we can get to a higher morality where this power dynamic doesn't become particular and oppress certain people, but stays universal in a more democratic way, where we can share in the fruits of wisdom and the enhancements and the fruits that come from that. Okay, I hope I addressed most of the points there. Really appreciate you letting me talk twice, Ron, and I hope it made sense, Terry.
First of all, I love listening to you talk, even though I don't agree with most of it. It's a great, no, seriously, it's a great pleasure to hear somebody who's got such good, lofty ideas. I'm with you.
They're not lofty. Like,
okay.
Thing that if we're enhancing, we have to be enhancing somewhere. So you have to sort of admit, well, where are we going? What's the end goal?
Precisely.
And the end goal is genuine freedom. It's just sort of a destiny and this wisdom process. But what would you say it would be then if you don't believe in a universal purpose?
Now, first of all, I've already said that if you're talking about going somewhere, it means that we're going to the end, and you're looking for the end. Human beings will never get to the end. They can't do. They will stop being human. You are looking for an end, the perfection. You're talking about essence. What does essence mean? Essence is truth. I don't go for truth and I don't go for essence because we're human. And you even said approximate. If it's approximate, it can't be an essence. If it's an approximate essence, it's not an essence. If it's approximate truth, it's not the truth. And everything is approximate. And now you're going to move away from approximation to say, no, we can get to exactness. That does not exist anywhere. And I think Terry will agree with me there. I think. And especially with that hat on.
Approximation is an absolute principle.
Okay. So
Mark, frankly, I was in queue and it was just time. I just want to ask you real quick, what in the world were you referring to when you said something about a new theory of special relativity or something? Could you just mention a name or something where I could track that down? I was an intrigue.
Yeah, it's intriguing. I just found it here too, because I'm trying to make this new proposal to an important committee. But anyway, I found it, and it's Julian Barber's work on shape dynamics and the Janus point. That is,
it's that's the dual universe theory. I'm a dual universe person also myself, a negative energy.
Oh, really? It just, when I looked at it, it makes more
sense. To me, Julian kind of just took it as a marketing tool, and his gravitational metrics, he introduces a negative energy universe, but he does so in a very oblique fashion. In fact, I would say a somewhat deceptive fashion that I think came in through his modeling people. But yeah, you pretty much have to go to, it's the only way you can really balance out certain qualities in that. So I'm a strong advocate of duals. Multiple people have come up with that. I came up with it in about 2007, or was that, the first one was a couple of physicists came up with, I think 2007 or 2004. Then I came up with independent in 2007. It's made quite a bit of headway in other areas, but it's also gotten knocked back down. There's some problems with the mathematics of it, but yes, dualism is that. Julian's version is, it's got some problems on the mathematics that I just alluded to with that. Okay, so that's it. Yeah,
we're in the same direction. I would love to hear more of your opinion. I don't know how to stay in touch with you on that, but I'm really interested in that.
Sarxiv.org, sarxiv.org. And that's where I do essentially my blog on different radical, quote, radical. I believe in energy conservation. I believe the universe vacuum is not infinitely massive. I believe there are not a gazillion universes. How radical. So I'm kind of an extreme pragmatics on certain parts where the mathematical abstractions have gotten way out of hand and create realities that have no meaning to them. And special relativity is very much part of that, because right down at the very bottom of special relativity is a confusion about the nature of a location in space, believe it or not, something that simple. You cannot locate a point directly in space in special relativity. And this is a little point that gets overlooked. And it causes all sorts of things like quantum mechanics. So it's an interesting area. And I think there's going to be some interesting stuff come up in the next. There's going to be some interesting stuff coming up with it. So
I think it's a real enhancement, just to bring it back on topic. I really do think that. I really do think that it's
yeah,
probably
I love Ron's group, and we got together because of the approximation thing, and it's just such an incredibly important theme about how we overassume, and in doing that, both in philosophy and science, it causes problems. We need a certain humility that comes from recognizing the approximation of what we're doing, and that has all sorts of consequences. So, Vivac enough. I think the atom.
Yes,
also,
thank you very much, Tony.
Oh gosh, I forgot your name, Tony.
If you don't mind my calling you Tony.
Oh, no, by all means. Actually, I grew up in England, and my name's Anthony, but from the beginning I was called Tony. I never knew this. I was Anthony until I was nearly an adult. Anyway, here is the thing. There is many categories of things, right? First of all, we're human beings, right? We make things, we make our sciences, we do all of those things. But at the said time, we come back to being human beings. We are imperfect, right? In fact, a definition of perfection is imperfection. We can never reach perfection, because one of the things with us is that once we've reached perfection, we find a fault. We need to improve it, or we need to change it. So imperfection is part, I think, of our psychological makeup, right? That's just my belief. The next thing is that when you have, say, enhancements, say you want to use AI, right? AI, I was also a systems programmer. I've been many things in my life. I love the eclecticness of things. Invariably, the programmer, right, is the one creating the AI. So for example, if the company says that the AI should look at this or look at that or look at that, it's not an impartiality. It is the human being behind the sponsorship of this AI that has created that personality for the AI, right? So as was mentioned earlier, we as human beings have a natural biasness. We tend, as somebody said, to like things that are like us, right? And we tend to fear things that are not like us. It is usually people who have evolved, I'm going to use the word evolved, to an awareness that elevate themselves from these basic tendencies of human beings. This is why I talk about a lot of the issues we have, say, in the world and so forth, and even with regards to, you know, how enhancements might be utilized, different type of enhancements, is because of our psychology, our developmental psychology, our sociology. You look at the news, anything that goes in your mind, Piaget, right, said that basically your cognitive schema is affected by whatever goes in there. It can go in there from somebody saying something, from you looking at something, touching something, whatever. It will go into your mind, try to find its way into the cognitive schema and create an impression, right? So last thing, I have quite a few friends who are, you know, hardcore scientists. My background is also natural science. And they cannot see that that does not answer the human condition. Science in itself does not answer the human condition, but we live in a world of humanity. I don't know if that has just murkied the water, or you know, stirred up the water and make it more dirty or whatever, but that's what I want to say. And also, thank you for this venue. It is awesome. Ron,
Thank you very much.
This
Thank
is
you
just
for coming.
great.
I'm very pleased you came. I know it's your first time. I hope we see you again. I'm at the moment, if you are interested in seeing this video and ones that came before, I'm at the moment typing out where you can get to, which is my YouTube channel.
Wonderful.
So I'm just doing it now. And you can
Okay.
make comments there.
Also, if you hear me with a lot of emotion, that's just how I am, right? It's
No,
just
emotion's
how I
very good.
express myself.
Emotion is great. I'm all for it. Really for it. I mean, Mark, you know that. It's okay. So here it is. So
Okay.
and you can also you can write to me. It's on the invitation, my email address, and so you can look at that, make comments, etc., etc. We go back over about 2.5 years, more actually.
Wonderful.
Every first day of the Sunday, except for 1st of January or so, something like that. So where is? Oh, it's gone. Anybody? Sally, you wanted to say something before. Do you still do?
No, thank you. I just raised my hand by mistake.
Oh,
But
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I just ask the name of the last speaker, please? Because I was looking out for it and I didn't see his name. The very last speaker.
Tony?
Oh, Tony, hello. I was looking for your name in the list. I was going to send you a private message just to say how much I enjoyed I thoroughly enjoyed your contribution. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. This is awesome. I love the minds of everybody. You're looking at things in different perspective, which we all should really respect and so forth. And depth, you're all aware as far as I've interacted with. So I'm just happy. All right, bye.
We're happy you are, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in February. Okay, I will put on the.
Ron, Ella had a comment on the text if she would be willing to talk.
Pardon?
Ella had a comment on the text. She might, if she might be willing to.
Oh, I didn't see that. Ella, are you there?
She may prefer just to leave it as a text comment.
Okay, Ella, are you there? Can you hear us? Oh, it's to unmute. Let me see if she can unmute. Thank you all. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
You're signing off,
Rob?
You're signing off now, are you?
Pardon?
Are you signing off now? You're closing the meeting?
If nobody's got anything else to say, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. See you all in February.
February.
Well, hold on. Ron.
Yes.
Why did you say that everybody had their videos on? You're going to tell us why it was important to keep our videos on for some reason, but you never said.
Okay. Something very unfortunate happened in about our second meeting. The only one here who saw it was Terry. I'm surprised he came back after that. What happened? Oh, sorry, and Debbie.
Debbie was there. Debbie was there.
Yeah.
Two of you, sorry. Two of you.
And Morris.
And Morris, where are you?
Morris, you too.
Where are you? Oh, there you are, Morris. Yes. Sorry, there were three. How many people are you? Three.
Still getting help for it.
Ron, I was here last month. Yeah.
No, well, it wasn't. It was 2.5 years ago. It was I will tell you the secret. I think it was our second meeting. Security was not good on Zoom. I didn't know that at the time. What happened was we were discussing something and somebody came in and showed us videos which were absolutely beyond anything you can think about. They were absolutely horrific. So bad, I can't somehow get them out of my mind. They were awful, right, Terry?
Well, and that's the trouble with people like that, is that is exactly what they intended. Is they wanted to. It's a form of sadism that they want to inflict that on people, and probably some kind of bizarre internal struggle of justifying themselves. But yeah, it was a pretty intense experience, and there's a reason for that. But Zoom has gotten better, but Zoom.
Oh yes, well, not
caught in that period because Zoom had no security safeguards to speak of.
No, anybody could come in and share share his videos with everybody. They can't do that anymore. And there's a waiting room now. So we let people in that we think we know, but you can get rid of them, and nobody can share videos. The only one who can do it is me. I can share my screen, but it was a very bad experience, and it was awful. And that's why I want to see the people. And anyway, it's just more sociable. It's just nicer when you see people and they talk to you, and it's just nicer. Some people just don't want to do it, and I respect it. I don't like it very much. I respect it. I could say you can only come in if you switch on your video, and some people won't come in and they've got reasons for it and whatever. So I'm pretty liberal, but I would prefer people to come in. It's just nicer for all of us. That's all. I'm just pleased to see you all. That's all. So now you know.
By the way, Tony and Mark, I wanted to say I really appreciate your comments. There was some good contributions. Olga, I really appreciate your comments also. Just personally, I thought you had some interesting things, and other folks too. Debbie, I always like your defense of Kant. Yes, but I haven't heard you do that in a while. I need that. We need that.
Thank you, Terry.
It's nice hearing you.
Thank you very much for coming, everybody.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. See you in
And,
February.
Merry Christmas.
And happy Christmas, Happy New Year, etc. Bye, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.